Have you ever been playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and during the match you end up getting killed? I mean, I can't relate. But as you're sitting there waiting for your character to respawn, you decide to take one little look over at your opponent and...
Looking cool, Joker!
Yeah, and that sends you a bit over the edge. Well, that right there is the purpose of a taunt, to make you angry. In Smash Ultimate, every single character gets 3 unique taunts, except for Wario who gets 4. That greedy. These are generally just animations that the character can do to give them some more personality. A few reference the character's source material, and a lot of others are completely original. While they are for the most part useless in a practical sense, they can be pretty fun to throw out every now and then. However, receiving them does not always feel great. Like I said, it can fill some people with a lot of rage, to the point where they may just want to remove a taunt entirely. Well, as it turns out, that doesn't only apply to the players, as the makers of the games can be on the receiving end too. Difference is, they actually have the power to remove stuff, so over the course of the series, there have been a decent amount of taunts that didn't make it into Ultimate. On top of that, many characters also had their taunts significantly changed, whether it be a different voice line or a different animation. So today, I want to take a look at these cut and change taunts to see what they were, what they could maybe be based on, and if I think they're better than the taunts the character currently has. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. At 200k, I'm ranking every 2D Mario level, and let's jump right in. Starting off, we have probably the most iconic cut taunt of the bunch. In fact, this is the only taunt to be in every single Smash game except Smash Ultimate. That would of course be Mario's previous up taunt, which was present in Smash 64, Melee, Brawl, and Smash 4. I don't think you all need me to explain what this is based on, but just in case you've never seen a Mario game before, this is obviously meant to replicate what happens when Mario collects a Super Mushroom. A more subtle detail is that the pose Mario is in is meant to replicate how he stands in Super Mario Bros. Now on top of just having a really strong reference, this taunt is just super unique. No other taunt changes a character's hurt box this dramatically, because as Mario grows, so does that hurt box. That makes this probably the most detrimental taunt to actually use, but that sort of makes the flex even stronger. One other thing I've always loved about this taunt is the fact that the growth actually stacks with the mushroom power-up. So if you have the right setup, you can make Mario absolutely enormous. So yeah, safe to say, this is one of the most fun taunts to mess around with in the Smash series. So why'd they remove it? Well, I suspect it may have something to do with the fact that taunts in Ultimate can be cancelled part way. Many taunts were also made faster in Ultimate to go with that, which we'll see a few times throughout this video. The Super Mushroom taunt though would be really weird to cancel just because it would force Mario to instantly shrink down, which maybe could have caused some problems. Now they could have just made it a taunt that you can't cancel, but all the other ones that are like that are attack taunts, so it would be a bit weird for this to also be there. So instead in Ultimate, they replaced it with a thumbs up. Honestly though, I still really like this taunt too. I mean, if your opponent kills himself, there's nothing funnier than hitting them with a... Mario's other 2 taunts are also great as well, so even though this Super Mushroom taunt is iconic, I don't know if I can bring myself to replace any of his current taunts. I also can't say that this old taunt is worse than the new ones though, so I think my final rating for this taunt is going to be different from everything else in this video. I rate Mario's previous up taunt a please give characters 4 taunts in the next Smash game. Please. The other cut Mario taunt will luckily be much faster for us, that being his side taunt from Brawl and Smash 4. In that taunt, he just does a small spin and takes off his cap. It's not really concretely based on anything in particular, but Mario takes off his cap several times throughout the series, so it does fit him pretty well. Ultimate's replacement, though, is a massive improvement. While the concept of him taking his hat off is the same, the animation is completely different as it actually implements Cappy. Now, I may or may not be biased to Super Mario Odyssey, but I love this taunt conceptually. It's a perfectly fitting reference, and I just think the animation looks so much nicer. Mario seems so much happier too, which fits his character perfectly. The old one wasn't even bad though. I just think now that we have Odyssey, the new taunt makes way more sense. So in my opinion, this cut was completely fair. Alright, onto our next character, Link, who's had 2 cut taunts as well. Starting off, we have his taunt from Melee. Idle animation looking. Yeah, so this is one of the weakest taunts in the entire series. All he does is lightly brush his hair, which could very well just be an idle animation. I'd say this is even worse than Dr. Mario's boring foot stomp. As far as I can remember, this isn't based on anything either, but even if it was, there are so many better things to reference. The Link in Melee is the adult hero of time, so why not have him pull out the ocarina itself and play a short song? Honestly, I'm still kinda sad Young Link doesn't have that for any of his taunts. What's extra weird about this taunt though, is that it replaced its original taunt in Smash 64, but that taunt came back in Brawl and is still present in Ultimate. Smash 64 and Melee only gave each character 1 taunt, so replacing a pretty distinct one with this very boring animation was really weird. All this to say, yeah, I'm happy it's gone. His other cut taunt was a side taunt from Brawl and Smash 4. This features a fairy flying around him. The sources I found all say it's Navi, which is a bit weird since this is Twilight Princess Link, but having a fairy here still makes sense. They're a major part of the franchise. I know in most Zelda games, I always try to have as many on me at once as I could. The only real exception though are the two Switch titles, which I personally feel have a lot less of an emphasis on them. They are still in the games, but I never felt like they were quite as important there. So this taunt was understandably replaced in Ultimate. To be honest though, that taunt is kinda mid. Link has certainly held the Master Sword like that in the series before, but I don't know, it's not very memorable. So what do I say? Keep the new one or bring back the old one? Neither. Secret Evil third thing. I say replace this with a Tears of the Kingdom based taunt next game. That would be much more exciting. Moving down the list we have Samus, who has technically had two, but they're fairly similar to one another. Those would be your taunts from Smash 64, and her taunt from Melee. Both just have her raise up her arm cannon, with the Melee version having a lot more movement than the rest of her body. As for what these were replaced by, I'm assuming that would go to her current side taunt. This is a lot more interesting with the ring coming from the cannon, so I'm happy to say this cut makes sense. Of these two, I also definitely prefer the Melee version. I mean, in Smash 64 the animation is so weak it almost looks like she's waving at you. And now we've reached the first character of the video to only have one cut taunt, that being Kirby. This would be his previous up taunt, which was seen in Brawl and Smash 4. Lucky for me, this is a pretty clear reference, being part of his victory animation for many Kirby games. In my opinion, that makes perfect sense for a taunt, so why was it replaced? Well, I mentioned before that Ultimate tried to significantly speed up many taunts, and this is one of them. Kirby's new up taunt in Ultimate looks like this. Essentially, it just cuts out the dance beforehand, making the taunt purely the final pose. Now, to be honest, I don't know exactly which one I prefer. On the one hand, the longer version obviously has him doing more, but on the other, getting right to the point can sometimes look better. I also like how his new up taunt can connect with his side taunt with canceling, allowing you to spin into the star pose. Plus, Kirby also has plenty of his victory dances represented on his victory screen, so it's not like the reference is completely lost without the taunt. So this might be a bit of a controversial opinion, but I think I might just barely prefer the shorter version in Ultimate. Fox is an interesting character, as his taunts changed in quite a few ways. First, let's start with a taunt that was completely cut, being his original taunt from Smash 64. I honestly really like this one. It has him cross his arms and scoff, which I think perfectly fits him. Now, it's not completely gone, as it still shows up as one of Fox's victory screens in Ultimate. Personally though, I think I liked it more as a taunt, so if it was up to me, I'd bring it back. They could replace the victory screen with him doing a little dance, I don't know. As for which taunt I'd replace, I personally find his current side taunt to be the most boring. It's a bit of a weak animation, so I prefer the stronger pose of the old 64 Fox. Now that does technically cover all of his cut taunts, however his up and down taunt have changed quite a bit over the series. The animations remain the same, but their voices are completely different. That's because Fox has had 3 different voice actors across the Smash series, so when recording these lines, they also changed them a bit. Starting with his down taunt, he says a different line in the 3 games leading up to Ultimate.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Come at me!
I vastly prefer Ultimate's Come At Me because there are a billion other taunts that just say come on, so we're not really missing out on much. His up taunt also has him say something different in Brawl and Smash 4.
Here I come! Here I come! Let's go!
I think I also prefer Ultimate's again. Let's Go just feels a bit more in character for me. So yeah, I think if they just replaced his side taunt with the Smash 64 taunt, Fox would be in a pretty good spot. Also, I'm only covering English in this video. If you want other languages, do it yourself. Next up, we have the Rat. He doesn't technically have any cut taunts, but his infamous side taunt has had a pretty big evolution over the course of the series, so I thought I should cover it. Starting off, this is what it looks like in Ultimate. I'm sure everyone has heard that at least once. Now let's go all the way back to Smash 64. Yeah, both the voice and animation are decently different. In this game, he waves both hands while looking around, which is quite different to the one-handed wave at the camera. From there, we could take a look at the versions of the taunt in Melee, Brawl, and Smash 4. These have Pikachu wave twice, swaying side to side in sync with each Pika. I'm just gonna go out and say it, I think the older versions look way better. It fits what he's saying more, and it's just a much more interesting animation. Most of all though, listen again to the Smash 4 version against the Ultimate one. Yeah, that's not me messing up the audio. The second Pika gets cut short in Ultimate. Maybe it's not noticeable for people who haven't played the previous games, but ever since Ultimate launched, this has sounded really off to me because I'm so used to the Smash 4 version. So yeah, in my opinion, Smash 4 is the best side taunt. This one got hit hard by Ultimate's taunt changes. Onto our final character from Smash 64, we have the other Pokemon, Jigglypuff. This time the cut taunt is the one she originally had in Smash 64. Now there is a taunt that still uses the voice line in Ultimate, but the animation is very different, having her spin and then puff up. Now, I do like the idea behind the Ultimate one more, but I actually think there was a Smash game before this that did the idea slightly better. In Melee, the animation is the same, but instead of just staring blankly into the endless abyss, she actually winks. I think that's a really cute detail, so I hope the next Smash game brings it back. But yeah, overall, this animation is definitely quite a bit better than what we saw in Smash 64. Now it's time for us to move on to our characters from Melee. First up, we have Princess Peach, who much like Pikachu has had a taunt change quite a bit over the Smash series. That would be your current down taunt in Ultimate. This originated in Melee just like Peach and had a different voice line and animation.
Sweet!
While the final pose is the same between both, the Melee version has her do a little spin beforehand. She also originally had a different voice line here, but that was changed in Brawl and Smash 4. Now I think I do prefer the sweet line, but she does still use it in her up taunt. Having the same voice line in two taunts would be a bit weird, so sure, she can keep what she has now. As for the animation though, I definitely like having the twirl beforehand. The taunt is still good as is, I mean they didn't completely butcher it like Pikachu, but in a perfect world, I think she'd use the Smash 4 version. Ice Climbers also got a minor change to their up taunt in order to make it faster. Here's what it originally looked like in Brawl, and here's what it looks like in Ultimate. I'm honestly not completely sure which one I like the most. They both have their own strengths and weaknesses. I think Ultimates is probably a bit easier to spam, so I'll give it the edge here. Also, this taunt makes me laugh because it reminds me of this gif. Now, Zelda is probably the character to have the most amount of changes to her taunts. That does make perfect sense as there have been 3 different Zeldas over the course of the series. Melee had Ocarina of Time, Brawl and Smash 4 had Twilight Princess, and Ultimate has A Link Between Worlds. Personality and looks-wise, these Zeldas are all quite different, so pretty much every single taunt has been changed significantly between them. Starting us off, her Melee taunt is completely unlike anything we see in Ultimate. Her praying does fit this version of the character decently well, though as a taunt it's not terribly exciting, so I'm fine with it being replaced. The closest one to it is probably the other 2 Zelda's side taunt, but these instead have them create a small flame with magic. Now conceptually this taunt remains the same from here on out, but the animation got a pretty big tweak in the jump from Smash 4 to Ultimate. I think both versions are the best fits for the respective Zelda, so I personally wouldn't change this. The next taunt to be completely replaced is the Brawl and Smash 4 up taunt. That works pretty well for Twilight Princess's more serious Zelda, but in Ultimate we got a much flashier animation instead. Again, I think each taunt fits their respective Zelda, so I wouldn't change a thing. The last taunt we have to look at is her down taunt, which is a wave between all 3. In Brawl and Smash 4, she just silently leans forward. But in Ultimate, she doesn't lean forward and laughs maniacally. Yeah, that taunt has definitely led at least one person to having a mental breakdown. I think the laugh is a perfect addition for this Zelda, and it makes this one of my favorite taunts in the game. So despite having so many different taunts over the course of the series, I think Ultimate Zelda's selection is pretty perfect. Good job, Smash team. Alright, time for rat number 2. This is a really weird case of a cut taunt. Pichu was only in Melee before returning in Ultimate, so theoretically, he should only have one taunt. If we take a look at what it was, though, that is clearly the same as his down taunt in Ultimate. So why am I giving him his own segment? Well, that's because Pichu's taunt in Melee actually changed based on what direction you were facing, which is not the case in Ultimate. I'm pretty sure the only other taunt like that in the entire series is Captain Falcon's iconic down taunt.
Show me your moves. Show me your moves.
Even then though, the concept is still basically the same. The animation just had to be tweaked to match Falcon's back facing the camera. Pichu's on the other hand is just a completely different taunt. The one we saw before we can only do while facing right, but if you taunt while facing left, he'll do this instead. That is completely different, which is what makes the decision to combine them so strange to me. So this other taunt is probably most similar to Pichu's current side taunt. Personally, I do like the crazier animation on the Melee version, so I'd be happy for it to replace the Ultimate one. But all in all, this is definitely one of the weirdest cut taunts we'll be looking at today. Falco is another character that's in a similar boat to Fox, as he's also gotten 3 different voice actors across the Smash series. While he doesn't have any fully cut taunts like Fox, all of his did get pretty significant voice changes. Starting off, we have the oldest of the bunch being his down taunt, which got its start back in Melee. In Melee, he just laughed, which was okay I guess, but in every game since, he actually got a voice line here.
Hands off my prey. Hands off my prey.
Obviously, I prefer the voice line because it's pretty iconic at this point. Mostly because you can cancel it with down smash to get an absolutely raffle-worthy result.
Hands off my.
Also, does anyone else think Brawl Falco sounds like an AI?
Hands off my prey.
Like, it can't just be me, right? He sounds so weird. Well, moving on, we have Falco's side taunt, which has the same animation but has gotten a completely different line in every game it's in.
Don't try me. Get some. Come on.
Of these 3, I think my favorite is the Smash 4 line. I already mentioned that the phrase "come on" is extremely overused in taunts, so keeping "get some" would have made for some more variety. Finally, while his up taunt has the same words in each game, the 2 voice actors give such wildly different deliveries, I figured why not go ahead and play it for you guys while we're here.
Piece of cake. Piece of cake.
I'm definitely good keeping the Ultimate version. Marth might just have the most infamous voice change of them all, because up until Ultimate, he talked exclusively in Japanese no matter what language you were playing in. In fact, I remember it being somewhat controversial when they did decide to change him to English. Personally though, I'm a fan of this change, and I do hope they do this for Cloud and Sephiroth in the next game. They've always had English voice actors just to use them. Anyway, the first taunt we have to look at is Marth's original taunt from Melee, which lasted all the way up into Smash 4 as his down taunt. This voice line will forever be burned into my memory. No clue what he's saying, but he sure is saying it. Obviously though in Ultimate he says something in English, along with just having less sword swings to speed this animation up.
Keep your eyes open.
Personally, I think this is a weird case to determine which taunt is better. I like having the English voice line of Ultimate, but the longer Smash 4 version just looks better, so I'd combine the old animation with the new voice line. And I guess for Japanese players, just bring back the Smash 4 taunt. As for Marth's other two taunts, the animation remains the same, but Ultimate added voice lines to each as they were originally silent. Starting with up taunt, he puts his sword up in the air.
This is it.
For side taunt, he sheaths his sword.
I won't lose.
I think the voice lines they added here do a good job making these taunts a bit more memorable, so I definitely prefer the Ultimate versions. While we're already on Marth, we might as well mention Roy, who also had a Japanese to English transition in Ultimate. In Roy's case though, he only talked in his Smash 4 and Ultimate side taunt.
I won't lose.
Like Marth, I prefer Roy speaking in English. It honestly felt weird going back to Smash 4 and hearing the Japanese for him. This one is going to be really quick because it's not really much of a notable change, but comparing how Ganon laughs in Ultimate's up taunt to his Melee one is really funny. Why does he laugh like that? Anyway, our final Melee character is Mr. Game & Watch, who has had one cut taunt. That would be his original down taunt in Brawl. I honestly think the hop is pretty cute, but what it got replaced by I do definitely like more as a taunt. With that being said though, I would still like to see this come back, just under a different slot. I've never liked the fact that Mr. Game & Watch has two different taunts ringing a bell, with the only change being the direction he's looking. I definitely think he should keep at least one, but I think the other should go, so I'd replace his up taunt with his Brawl hop, making each taunt completely unique from one another. Now onto the Brawl newcomers, we got to start out with Pit. He's another goofball in the voice change camp as he got a new voice actor between Brawl and Smash 4. That makes sense because Brawl came out well before Kid Icarus Uprising, but that also means the lines and the taunts changed quite a bit. First let's start with Pit's up taunt.
The fight is on!
Come on.
I'm sure you all can guess what I'm going to say. I vastly prefer the old line, as the fight is on is much more unique than come on. Also, Pit's Brawl voice lines are so oddly low quality that they're just extremely funny to me. Pit's side taunt also got its voice line changed.
You're not ready yet!
That all you got?
This one could go either way, as both are unique and interesting voice lines for Pit. I think of the two, I do prefer Ultimate's line, but the low quality of Brawl did make this a harder choice. Now, Pokemon Trainer technically consists of 4 different guys here: Squirtle, Ivysaur, Charizard, and even the trainer himself. Believe it or not, all of them received at least a few small changes. So going in order, Squirtle's side taunt changed a decent amount between Brawl and Ultimate.
Glide up.
Squirtle's way.
While they both still spin, the Brawl version not only has a water effect, but he also doesn't lose his balance like in Ultimate. I'm not really sure which one of these I prefer. I think they both work pretty well. Maybe this would be another case of combining. I would keep most of Ultimate's, but just add the water effect from Brawl since that fits in pretty well. In the case of Ivysaur, their voice lines for their side and down taunt changed slightly.
Ivysaur! Ivy!
Now what's my opinion on this? I really could not care less. Charizard is the one to get the most changes, as technically every single one of them from Brawl got changed or replaced in Ultimate. The smallest change is the fact that his up taunt in Brawl and Smash 4 was changed to be his down taunt in Ultimate. I'm sure that really caused chaos in the Charizard community. His other two taunts though got completely replaced in Ultimate. Starting with side taunt, it has a really cool animation in Ultimate where he flies in place before letting out a roar. In Brawl and Smash 4 though, he just kinda looks at you. Yeah, I'm definitely not upset this one was cut. It's very boring. His last removed taunt was his previous down taunt where he turns towards the camera, but this time he stomps. While this is definitely better than the other cut taunt, I'm not too sad about it being replaced by this. Because this one is so weird, what compelled them to make this? The final of the 4 is of course the trainer himself. All 3 of his taunt animations completely changed between Brawl and Ultimate, so let's just take a look at each of them for comparison. On top of the animations being different, the Ultimate Trainer also gets voice lines, so I feel pretty safe saying that the Trainer's taunts in Ultimate are all better than Brawl. Alright, after the massive amount of Pokemon Trainer changes, I think we need a bit of a breather. Luckily, Sonic only got a few voice line changes. Unfortunately for our breather segment, it's the voice line change I feel the most passionate about. I think almost every single one of you know this one, but Brawl Sonic had a completely different voice line for his side taunt than Ultimate Sonic.
You're too slow!
Sonic speed.
"You're too slow" is such a perfect taunt line for Sonic. It fits his cocky attitude to a T and seems like something he would absolutely say after winning a fight. Sonic's speed in comparison is so much more boring. I mean, yeah, he's saying he's so fast, but come on, "You're too slow" is a way better line. It's probably one of the most blood-boiling voice lines to hear, and that's exactly what I think a taunt should be. I have always disliked this new line so much. I know it's a small tweak, but if I could only revert one taunt in this entire game, I think it would be this one. Plus, fighting Sonic in Smash is already annoying, so you might as well get into it. We're not done yet though, as his down taunt got a voice tweak between Brawl and Ultimate too.
Come on, step it up. Come on.
Wow, another one that turned into a come on taunt. Yeah, technically that is just a shorter version of the original, but the added step it up in Brawl really improved this over what we have today. Wait, I should have said it really stepped it up. Toon Link might just have one of the funniest change taunts of the bunch. In Ultimate, his side taunt looks like this. A fairy flies around him and he looks at it. A pretty good spin on the fairy taunt Link used to have with a more expressive Toon Link. In Brawl though, it looked like this.
Huh?
Yeah, he just doesn't have a fairy, so he looks really confused. I probably only find this funny because of the context of Ultimate and Smash 4, but this definitely made me giggle. The Ultimate one is obviously better, but Brawl's was hilarious. The final Brawl character we need to take a look at is Wolf, who changed quite drastically from Brawl to Ultimate. Starting with side taunt, this was completely removed in Ultimate.
What's the matter, scared?
It got replaced by this.
Are you scared?
Both are pretty good. The Brawl one definitely has a lot more movement, but I also like the simple hand gesture of Ultimates. I think I'm gonna say I prefer the new one, but the old one was pretty good too. The other taunt I want to take a look at is Wolf's down taunt, which is conceptually the same, but the sound he makes is very different. He sounds like a loser in the Ultimate one. Like, the sound makes more sense, but it just sounds stupid. I prefer the Brawl one in this case. Although none of this matters because the best one is the Howl. But now it's time for our final game, Smash 4, which definitely has the least amount of changes since by this point they mostly figured out what they're doing. We can sort of rapid fire through a bunch of these. Villagers up and side taunts were both made shorter in Ultimate. Personally, I think the shorter ones work well enough. For another quick one, Little Mac moves his arm quite a bit differently in his side taunt. I think the Ultimate one is much better. Moving the arm that's facing toward the camera makes the motion much more clear. Alright, now we get into one of the bigger Smash 4 characters with Pac-Man. Two of his taunts use sprites and both got some pretty significant changes. Let's start with the simpler of the two, his down taunt. In Smash 4, Blinky and Pinky will appear above his head. In Ultimate though, two fairies from Pac-Land will be there instead. Personally, I think this is a pretty good change. Pac-Man already uses Blinky and Pinky in his Smash attacks, so using the fairies here allows for some more unique representation. Plus, they just fit better. Realistically, if a ghost was flying above his head, he should be terrified. The second taunt I want to look at, though, is Namco Roulette, another one of the most popular Smash taunts. This is his up taunt, and upon doing it, a random sprite will appear from a random Namco game, alongside a matching sound effect. This is a fantastic way to represent so many Namco franchises. It's definitely one of my favorite taunts in the series. As you may expect, this did change a bit between games, and that's because they added a few new sprites in Ultimate. What you may not know though is that there are actually 3 different versions of this taunt. But how can that be? Pac-Man has only been in 2 Smash games. While that is sort of true, you're forgetting that there are 2 versions of Smash 4, Smash for 3DS and Smash for Wii U. Believe it or not, this taunt actually had both 3DS and Wii U exclusive sprites during Smash 4. Ultimate has all sprites from both versions, but let's just run through what sprites used to be exclusive anyway. Exclusive to 3DS, there was Turn to Blue from Pac-Man, and King from King and Balloon. For Wii U exclusives, there was Andor Genesis from Xevious, Runner from Metro Cross, and Valkyrie from Valkyrie no Densetsu. The Ultimate Roulette has all of the ones seen in both versions, with 2 new additions being Heihachi from Tekken, and the Prince of All Cosmos from Katamari. Obviously, the Ultimate Roulette is the best since it has everything, but I thought it was pretty interesting that some sprites used to be version exclusive. That covers all the base game Smash 4 characters, but before we end, 2 of the game's DLC characters got some pretty sizable changes. Starting off first with Ryu, we have his up taunt. In both Smash 4 and Ultimate, he tightens his headband, but how he does it is different.
Come on. Come on.
So yeah, in Smash 4, Ryu will turn around to have his back face the camera, which he doesn't bother doing in Ultimate. Personally, I think the Smash 4 version is much more interesting. Not only does it make him tightening his headband more clear, but him turning his back on you just looks way cooler. The new one definitely isn't bad, but I prefer how the old one looks. Finally, we have Bayonetta, who is pretty infamous in Smash 4. Well, for multiple reasons, but for the sake of this video, I mean her taunts. That's because they were the longest taunts in the series, and as I said in this video, Ultimate tried to shorten most taunts. So that means many of Bayonetta's took quite the hit. First, let's take a look at her up taunt, which makes the difference pretty clear.
If you need to learn how to talk to a lady, ask your mum. If you need to learn how to talk to a lady, ask your mum.
The Smash 4 dance is just much longer, which you can easily see by the fact that the voice line lasts for the whole Taunts in Smash 4, whereas in Ultimate, the voice line trails on long after she's done. Personally, I like Smash 4's better, it just fits the voice line more. And for our final taunt to this video, her down taunt was also made much shorter. In this case though, I think I do prefer Ultimate. There's no out of place long voice line on this, so the quick movement just looks better to me. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you think Game & Watch's up taunt is peak and you want me dead for suggesting otherwise? Let me know in the comments. I was honestly really surprised with how much there was to talk about here. I was genuinely expecting this to be a short video going in, but I had a lot of fun researching. Also, sorry that my voice sounds pretty bad here at the end. I kinda got sick and that's why this video is also a bit late, so I apologize for that. I also might not be able to get to a video next week just because I'm still a little bit sick, but we'll see how that goes. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.